Hey everybody, welcome back to the Grognards Corner, and we are looking at part 4 of my playthrough and game review and gameplay expose on the Advanced Tobruk System from Critical Hit Incorporated. We are playing Scenario 5 from the ATS Briefing number 2, covering the Arab-Israeli Wars of 1948 to 1956. Did want to make a couple clarifications. Last couple videos I've been calling the magazine the Critical Hit Annual number 2. It's not the annual, it's the ATS Briefing number 2. So if you're trying to find the Critical Hit Briefing or Critical Hit Annual number 2, it doesn't cover the Arab-Israeli Wars. As far as I know, it doesn't. So if you want to look at the Arab-Israeli Wars, you want to look at the ATS Briefing number 2. There are a couple, 3 things, as I was going over the last video, I kind of noticed that I had made some mistakes on. Kind of common with me. If you've listened to the podcast or watched me for any length of time, you know I am not a clever man. The first thing is movement. There are 3 basic types of movement. You've got crawling movement, allows you to move 1 hex. Then you've got assault movement, which gives you 4 movement points. Then you've got running movement, which gives you 7 movement points, but you're marked with a winded marker. And if you're stacked with a leader, you get +1 to your movement. I play a lot of ATS, I play a lot of ASL, the rule sets are similar, and a lot of times I will start to confuse the 2 rule sets a little bit. I was actually playing ASL with a buddy of mine about a month ago, and I was putting down target acquisition markers, and I was calling them burst on targets, because that's what they're called in ATS. And after about the 3rd time I did it, he goes, "What the hell is a burst on target?" I was like, "Oh yeah, sorry." Target acquisition. I had to explain to him that, hell, I just got done reading the Critical Hit ATS rules. So he actually thought that was kind of funny. The second thing that I wanted to point out that what I was forgetting is that we've got these little C markers, and they're basically continuation fire, continued fire markers, what have you. Basically, any time that a hex receives at least 6 gunfires or 6 firepower on the column, so anytime we have on the 6th column, you leave one of those continuation fire markers in the hex. Basically what that represents is during the turn, you know, the burst of fire that happens, it just doesn't happen in a very small frame of time. You know, the fire takes place throughout the entire turn, and if any unit will move into or through that hex later in the turn, then they have a chance of taking damage. I think they have to take a flat-out morale check. Or maybe it's to be honest, I cannot remember. It is a rule. I forget a lot of times, as was evident with the last video I did. I forget to put the continuation fire markers down. And the times that I do remember, I just make sure that I don't move into them. So, you know. Yes, I know, I'm not prepared. I'm sorry. Just suffice to say, bad things happen. The other thing that I wanted to point out that I forgot to mention, this is kind of a big rule. Whenever a squad is firing a support weapon, the squad's inherent firepower is reduced by 1 when it fires the support weapon. So, let's go ahead and take a look. So, if we've got this squad right here firing this Brin LMG, the normal fire, and this is a reduced squad, and you can tell because it's got the 2 guys and it's flipped over. It's got a firepower of 3, but if it fires the Brin machine gun, it has a firepower of 2, and then plus the inherent firepower of the machine gun. So you look at that, you would think, oh, it's a 6 firepower. No, you just have to remember that squads have to reduce their firepower by 1 if they're firing a crew support weapon. Again, that's another one of those little rules that I seem to forget a lot of times, but something I really should keep in mind. We got the camera set up in a little bit of a different position this time. This is at the end of turn 2. I don't even want to talk about what's been happening on the left flank. as if you remember from the last video, the Arabs were able to break the one squad that was up there in the building, and they just swarmed over the wall and started moving into the buildings, and it was bad. And the Israelis are frantically redeploying on that side. But on this side, what we had, basically not too much happened. Shifted one unit up. These two Israeli units, basically fired on the Arabs as they were coming across. We had one of the Arab units stacks flank around this side. And if you'll notice, like I was explaining last time, there's the arrow marker behind the unit that moved to indicate that its assault moved, whereas these two units here have the movement marker on top of them indicating that they crawled. And then, of course, we see the fire markers that were placed there. One other thing I did forget to mention, during the turn, when you're phasing your turns, you can actually pass. If it flips over to you and you have nothing you want to do or nothing you're able to do, you can always just pass. Which is a good thing because, you know, if you're the defender, that gives you a chance to sit back and kind of react to what the enemy's doing. The bad thing is that if your opponent then passes, i.e. both of you pass sequentially, the turn's over. It ends the turn. So it's kind of, you know, it's like, all right, do I really want to, all right, I ain't got nothing I want to do. He's getting close to being done, but I got a couple of these units over here. I really want to see what he does, so I'll pass. And then maybe your opponent decides he'll pass, ending the turn. So it's a little bit more thinking and trying to outguess what your opponent's going to do. Another aspect that I really enjoy about it, because it kind of makes the turns variable in length when they'll end. So we got that. Now I wanted to go over because we actually got into a good place to do it. The actual final phase, or really the third phase of the turn. There are three basic impulses or phases, segments, I guess you could call them. Well, four. You've got the indirect fire segment, then you've got your fire and movement segment, then you've got your close assault segment, and then you've got your end of turn segment. So I wanted to take a look at the close assault segment here real quick. And the close assault segment, everybody, again, this is something you have to roll initiative for, so we'll get to that in a little bit. All units can do one of two things. They can either do a free 1 hex move. It doesn't cost them anything. It's just a free move that they get to do. For the players of the advanced squad leader, it's, you know, basically the advance phase. And basically everybody gets to do it. You alternate back and forth. Or you can do a grenade attack. Now, grenade attack, there's a couple of stipulations on a grenade attack. You have to be good order. You can't be broken. You cannot have fired during the previous turn. So again, that's why we still have the fired and move markers left over all over everybody. What's the other restriction? I think those are the two big ones. You have to be in good order, and you cannot have fired. Now, you could have moved, but you cannot have fired to do a grenade attack. And grenade attacks and the infiltration moves all takes place during the close combat segment. So basically what you do is, again, it's a new impulse. You roll initiative. You do not use the same initiative from impulse to impulse. Go ahead and re-roll it. We're going to be using white for the Israelis and black for the Arabs. And whoever rolls lowest gets to decide. Okay, we got a 7 and a 5. The Arabs decide. The Arabs win, so that means they get to decide if they want to do their do infiltration first or second. The situation as it is, if we look up here, we actually have one Arab stack that managed to get into these buildings here that are right next to an Israeli stack. Now, there's the option of them either doing a grenade attack or infiltrating into close combat. Now, these guys just moved. They did not fire. So they are actually going to do a grenade attack. So let's go ahead and grab these guys and see what we have here. Okay. We've got... I need to come up with a better system for holding these counters. Oh, God. And come on, zoom in. Zoom in. There we go. All right, so we've got a squad. We've got a Vickers medium machine gun. Oh, wow, look at the firepower on that thing. We've got a leader, and we've got the winded marker on them. So basically what you do to figure out your grenade attack is you count up how many stacking points you have. And a stacking point is an individual guy on the counter. So this is 3 stacking points, and then we've got the leader over here for 4th stacking point. You triple that. So we've got 4 stacking points worth of troops. Tripled is 12. That's their grenade factor, and that's what they'll be rolling on the combat chart. So, you can only do this grenade attack to an adjacent hex. So obviously they are going to be attacking that hex right there. So we'll go ahead and we're going to be rolling on. Get over there. We're going to be rolling on the 12 chart. We've got a 9. Does not bode well. We look on the chart. There is no 12, so we look on the 10, and 9 is a nothing. A big fat goose egg. And since technically this was a grenade attack and they fired, you now mark them with a fired marker to remind you that they can't do another grenade attack this turn. Now, since that action is done, it flips back to the Israelis. Now, the Israelis can't do a grenade attack from this hex back, basically because they've already fired this turn. So they do not have the option to do a grenade attack. However, if they want to, they can infiltrate into that hex and try to get into close combat. So let's actually take a look at what we have here and see if it be okay. We've got a squad that's got a step loss, a light machine gun, and a leader. You know what? I don't think the Israelis are going to jump into that hex, because even if they manage to wipe them out and win, they've got this stack right here that just did a low crawl, did not fire, and could actually grenade attack them again. So, and the one thing about close combat is if you jump into close combat, it's to the death. You keep rolling back and forth until one side is dead. So close combat is a all or nothing proposition. It doesn't carry over like in Advanced Squad Leader, where hand to hand can and melee can last 3, 4, 5 turns. Combat keeps going in the same phase until one side wins. So we are going to go woo. Let's go ahead and infiltrate back here, trading a little bit of time for space. And then what we're going to do is, since it flips back over to the Arabs, they're going to go ahead and infiltrate into here to capture that. Because remember, the victory conditions are they have to capture 18 buildings. Let's see. What do the Israelis want to do? I think the Israelis are good right here. And let's go ahead and get this guy into the scrub. He'll infiltrate into there. The Israelis will infiltrate him to there. Now, I'm just focusing on this little piece of battle right here. I mean, you can look anywhere you want to. I just wanted to do this to give you kind of a quick look-see on how the close combat phase goes. These guys, the French 3-inch mortar fired at these guys during the turn actually hit them. Did a little bit of damage, it didn't break, but we need to get out of line of sight. And so we're going to go ahead and crawl here. I could crawl into here, but then we're going to get close to overstacking, and I really don't want to do that. So that is basically how the infiltration phase or the close combat phase works, with grenade attacks and melee, and the phases swinging back and forth. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to go ahead and finish off doing the infiltration and the rest of the board, and we will come back for the final phase, the end phase, which where all the rallying and getting broken troops back into combat and basic administrative stuff type happens. So Stay tuned, boys and girls. Hopefully I will be able to mesh these two videos together and be able to get them out as one video. If not, then we will be looking at part 5 for the end of phase. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it.